Hi y'all, this is Larry from Deep South Texas, and today we're going to see if you can make good bread from a bread machine. Let's get started. So last week I was going through my kitchen cupboards and I ran across an old bread making machine. Now, this machine hasn't been used in over 20 years, but I thought, well, let's give it a try. I've had several comments on my bread making videos about people saying I should use a bread machine because it's so much easier and makes good bread. My idea was bread machines don't make very good bread, but I gave it a try, and you know what? It wasn't too bad, but I think I can do it better. And here is the bread machine I found in the cupboard. It's a Pillsbury model 1016, got to be 25 years old. And here's where you bake the bread. This is the little paddle that does the stirring and the kneading. And there's the coil down there that does the baking. Okay, the way this bread maker works is it mixes up the ingredients and then it kneads it, then it lets the dough rise, then it knocks it down, lets it rise again, and then it bakes it. One thing to notice is this little mixing and kneading paddle is removable. It's always important to put your ingredients in your pan outside of the bread making machine, just in case you spill some. And the order that you put the ingredients in is important. So we start with the water. And I'll have the amounts both in cups and in grams in the description, but this is about 1 3/8 cups water. And it's just room temperature. So we put that in. Next, we put in the oil, about a tablespoon of olive oil. Then we put in the salt, 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt. Then in goes the flour, 3 cups of flour. I'm using bread flour. All-purpose flour would probably work as well. And finally, we put in the yeast, 1 tablespoon of instant yeast, and it's important to use instant yeast. And that's it. Now we're going to put this into the bread making machine and get started. All right. Put that in, give it a little twist. And it's ready to go. Now we've got to we're going to just make a normal loaf of bread. We're going to set it on dark, which takes 3 hours and 50 minutes, and hit start. And the bread machine is mixing up the ingredients, and when it gets done mixing, then it will go to kneading. Again, it's a 3 hour and 50 minute process, so in 4 hours we'll have bread, and we've done all we're going to do. Now we're just going to walk away. And when the bread is done, we'll check it out. So here is our loaf from the bread machine. So if you remember, we just threw the ingredients in the bottom and turned it on and let it run. It takes 3 hours and 50 minutes, and then we've let this cool down a little bit. And we have, you know, a nice loaf of bread. It is not as pretty as the bread I would normally make. Let's take a closer look here. So the outside, where it was in the pan, has lots of little holes, and the top looks a little bit better, but not normally what I see. Also, the bottom where the tool goes in to mix and knead, it leaves a little hole, and then it's also cracked where the paddle was still in it, so it was a little difficult getting out, but we got it. But we have a loaf of bread with hardly any effort whatsoever. Even though I had the bread machine set on dark, it's a little bit on the pale side, but not really a problem. Not really a problem. Now I'm making another loaf where I'm letting the bread machine mix and knead the dough, and then I'm putting it into a loaf pan. We'll compare these two when that comes out of the oven. This time we're going to use the bread machine just to make the dough. And so it will do the mixing and the kneading, and then we'll take the dough out and put it in a normal bread pan and bake that in the oven. Let's get started with that. So we go over and select dough and then hit start. It's the exact same ingredients that we did in the last batch. The dough making process is complete. Let's get that dough out of there and get it shaped. Okay, we've got our breadboard out here. We'll put just a little bit of flour on so it won't stick. Get our dough out of the bread making machine. And shape it up a little bit. First, we're just going to shape it into a ball. And then we're going to let that set for 5 minutes. Time to shape our dough and get it in the loaf pan. So you've probably, if you watched any of my bread videos, you've probably seen me do this before, but we just take our ball of dough and flatten it out. And then we're going to fold it over into a trapezoid shape. What we want to end up with is the bottom of that trapezoid being just slightly smaller than the loaf pan we're going to use. And I think that looks pretty good. Now, we'll go from the top and sort of stretch it and turn it in, and then make sure that you pinch it in a little bit each time. And pinch that seam together. Put a little flour on the outside and on the edges. And then we're going to put it in our loaf pan. And we'll let that rise. It'll take about 45 minutes, and we'll cover it, and then we'll put it in our oven and bake it at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes, 35 minutes, just until we think it has the color that we want. Well, our loaf of bread has risen and it's ready to go into the oven. And the oven has been preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. This loaf pan is 8.5 inches long, 4 inches wide, and 2.5 inches deep. Well, the loaf we took out and put it in a loaf pan and put it in the oven, I believe is done. Time to get that out. And we're going to put on a little bit of melted butter on the top, just to keep it nice and soft. So this bread is the one that we mix the ingredients in the bread machine. So the ingredients were mixed, the dough was kneaded, it had one of the rises in the bread machine, and then the bread machine knocked it down. Then we took the dough out of the bread machine, shaped it, and put it into a loaf pan, and cooked it in the oven. And you know, that came out to be a pretty nice loaf of bread. The exact same ingredients that are in both of the loaves. So we can see we get a little bit better color in the oven where we can watch it and take it out when it gets the color we want. This one's a little bit on the pale side, but you know, that's okay. So I think we ought to slice these open and see what the texture looks like inside. Now I'm going to try to do this sitting down, but I might have to stand up to finish it off here. So let's start with the loaf that was 100% made in the bread machine. Both loaves are cool at this point. So that looks very nice. Got a nice texture. It's a great size for putting in the toaster. It just fits. So that one looks good. Now they both taste the same. It's the same exact recipe. And believe me, this video took making a few of these, so I've eaten some, and they taste the same. But let's take a look at this one now. Green, again, nice texture. Probably about the same, but maybe a little bit nicer than the one that was done 100% in the bread machine. Looks like a nice slice of bread, like we're all used to. This one will also fit in the toaster just fine. So I'd say they're both successful. They're both certainly edible. They both taste great, and you know, it worked out well using the bread machine. Now, the one I shaped by hand and baked in the loaf pan certainly looks a lot nicer, and but either one works just fine. If you were, you know, going to give some away as a gift, I'd do it this way. If you're just making it for yourself, this is fast and easy. You know, 5 minutes worth of work, and that's about it. This one took an extra 5 minutes, so 10 minutes, 5 minutes. But the bread machine does an excellent job of mixing the ingredients and kneading the dough. Going through the first rise, that was really simple. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it that thumbs up. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time.